Ladies and gentlemen, come to the stage, Neal Nusholtz.
I can't see anybody at all, so I know you're out there. I can hear you breathing. On the way here, we drove down. I came with my wife, my lovely wife. We drove down Woodward, and in Highland Park, there's a store. It's all boarded up, and it says Highland Appliance on it. Many years ago, for those of you who are old enough to remember Highland Appliance, there's a store it was a chain of appliance stores that started in Highland Park, grew to a number of stores, and grew across the country in different states, and then it went bankrupt. Before it went bankrupt, I worked in one of the stores, which was called the Warehouse Store. It was, I'm not really sure where it was. It was in Detroit. It was an old warehouse, and it had a lot of appliances in it, and they sold them there. I was a stock boy. My job was to carry out heavy items for people that, you know, like a window air conditioner, or back when TVs were heavy, you know, a TV, and then stand there and watch them rearrange the stuff in their trunk while I sweated bullets, you know, to put this in their trunk. The other thing I did was I used to polish the furniture, and they, you know, because people would come and oh, this is really nice, and then they'd put their hand on it, and there'd be these fingerprints. And that's when TVs were in cabinets, you know, they were a piece of furniture. And a lot of times we just stood around and talked. And there was a couple security guards and maybe a few salesmen, but typically salesmen were otherwise busy with customers. But sometimes we'd talk. And I remember one of the security guards, his name was Tom. He was tall and thin. He'd been in Vietnam. He was in his 20s. And this was the year, the summer before I went to college. So I'm around 17 or 18. So that's like, you know, 100 years ago or something like that. So he had been in Vietnam. And I think he kind of had a chip on his shoulder, or he resented me because I was college bound, or something about it, because I could kind of tell that he resented me for one reason or another. One time we were talking, and he was talking about Vietnam, and I was curious. I was curious, you know, what it was like to have people that you knew that you had been with in the morning get shot and die, you know. And I asked him, I said, what is that like? What is it like to know people and see them die? And he looked at me and he said, well, if you don't know, you better go find out. And, you know, it just seemed kind of belligerent, but I didn't pay a lot of attention to it until I came in to him, I should say. I came in one day in the morning for work, and I see him walking towards me. And you can tell when someone's walking towards you that they're going to say something to you, because they don't look anywhere else but at you. So he's coming and he's walking up to me, and he says, do you drive a yellow car? Well, on the registration, it actually says ochre. So I said, it's ochre. And that's probably another reason he didn't particularly care for me. And so he asked me again, is it yellow? And I said, yes, it's yellow. And he said, can you leave early today, like 4 o'clock? I normally leave at 5. He said, can you leave at 4? I said, why? And he said, well, my father's coming in today to kill you. And he just got out of Jackson State Prison. And if he kills you, he's going to go back to prison. Now, if someone tells you that someone's coming to kill you, and that the real problem is if they kill you, they'll have to go back to prison, you can kind of gauge that they're not putting a high premium on your life. That's just my personal opinion. So, and the other thing that I reacted to that statement was, what did I do? And he says, I think you know what you did. I said, I don't know what I did. Now, I had seen, his parents used to pick him up, and I had seen them, and I'd seen his father. He was kind of a gruff-looking guy. You know, he had like a square haircut, short hair, and I think he had like, you know, like a denim short-sleeve T-shirt rolled up, you know, maybe a pack of cigarettes in his arm. And he also had, if I remember correctly, like a tattoo. But this was not like a decorative tattoo like you see nowadays where it's colorful or something. It would be like an anchor, or it would say mom or something, but it was, you know, rough-looking. This was back many years ago when a tattoo was usually had by like a pirate, you know, like somebody like that. So he, you know, I'd seen him, and I'd seen his mother. She was thin and had like a ponytail, although she was probably in her, I suppose, 40s or whatever. But But I'd never had a conversation with either of them. I'd never talked to them. I'd never been anywhere, maybe 40 feet of them. I mean, they would come, they would pick them. I'd see them, they'd wait for them, and they'd leave, and that was it. I had no idea why his father was coming to kill me. And so I said, what did I do? And one of the salesmen comes over and he says, what's going on? Because he sees us having this conversation. And I said, well, his father's coming in tonight to kill me, and his father was in prison, and if his father kills me, his father has to go back to prison. And I mean, like, what else could we be talking about? And he says to me, he looks at me and he says, you don't have to worry. And then he turns to Tom, that was a security guard. He turns to him and he points at the gun. He's got a holster with a gun on his hip. And he points at it and he says, if your father comes in to kill him, and he points at me, he says, you have to kill your father. And the security guard says, you can't expect me to kill my own father. And they start arguing over whether he has an obligation to kill his father or not kill his father. I'm not going to kill my own father. It's not part of my job description. It doesn't say kill your father on the job description. So, like, they're arguing, and I'm like, what did I do? You know, I'm like trying to think, what did I possibly do? You know, I mean, what did I do? I have no clue what I did. So he finally comes back to me, Tom, the security guard, comes back to me and he says, so can you leave early? And I said, what did I do? You know, what did I do? So he says, well, I think you know. And trust me, I don't know. So he takes his head and he kind of puts his head back and he kind of puts his tongue out for a second. And he goes like that. I knew what I had done. I said, oh, I know what had happened. You know, when you leave the building, there was a building, it was a gravel parking lot, and you pull your car out, and you have to stand in line and wait to go on a service drive, and it takes a while. And I was stuck there the night before, and my car was perpendicular to a salesman named Larry Zeitz. And so I'm in the car, and I look over at Larry, and Larry's looking at me, and I'm looking at Larry, and there's nothing I can do. I'm stuck in this line to get out onto the service drive. So I looked at Larry, and I went like that. And apparently, and I explained this to Tom, I said, I'm assuming his mother was in the next car. And he said that they drove home. His mother didn't say anything about it. She was all shaken up, I guess. And so when they got home in the kitchen, his mother said to him, this is what happened. You know, this guy propositioned me, or whatever she thought I was doing. And his father overheard it, and his father said, I'm going to go and kill that man, kill him for doing this, I mean, I guess it doesn't take much. So I explained this to Tom. I said, I didn't know your mother was in, I suppose I had to be careful. I don't want to say your mom's not my type, I just don't want to. So I said, I didn't know your mother was in the other car. I was making a face at Larry Zeitz because I was stuck in the car. I mean, I suppose to some people, why would anyone do that? It didn't seem credible that I would stick my tongue out at another person or something. I don't know. He didn't seem to believe me, and I said, stay right here. I went and got Larry. I said, Larry, listen, this is what's happening. Tom's father's coming in to kill me tonight. He just got out of prison, and if he kills me, he's going to go back to prison. And how bad is that? So Larry goes, that's absurd. I go, I know, but you just come over and tell Tom what happened because, he's coming in to kill me. He's going to go back to prison. We don't want that to happen. And Larry says, I don't want any part of this. I go, Larry, I'm going to die in 8 hours. Why don't you come, just do this, So he comes with me and he says to Tom, this is what happened. The guy made a face at me. It's got nothing to do with your mother. It's ridiculous. And he walks off. And so I said to Tom, you're all set. Just call your dad. Tell him he doesn't need to come in and kill me today, and we'll be all set. It's a done deal, So he doesn't seem to move in the direction of the phone, and it's like hurry. I've only got 8 hours left. Time is ticking. Come on, call your dad and tell him he doesn't need to kill me. It was all a big misunderstanding. It's a funny thing. Just laugh it off and forget about it. And so. For the rest of the day, I'd see him periodically. Did you call your dad? And he'd say I was busy doing what? Should I call the funeral home? I mean, will you call your dad? So then another stock boy comes up to me. There were two of us, and he comes up to me and he says, you ought to take these people seriously. And I look at him like, what am I supposed to do? You know, how serious am I supposed to take this? What am I supposed to do? And then the other security guard, Phil, comes over to me and he says, I just want you to know, I got my rifle out of the back and I'll be ready if there's trouble. I go, great. You know, like I'm like thinking like I go into the parking lot and there's like shooting, you know, like the bullets are hitting the ground near me and I'm running around. And I'm also thinking, you know, that I'll be, during the day I'm thinking I'll be in the store. He'll come earlier so that I haven't left yet, you know, and I'll be like doing something and I'll be like yanked up and I'll be like, you know, some guy holding me up, he turns me around, there's like a big tattoo on his arm and he says, you did this to my, you know, you wanted my wife, you're not going to have her, I'm going to kill you, or something like that. And or I'm running through the appliance store, hiding in refrigerators, you know, and jumping into garbage cans, popping out of the garbage cans, running over here, running over there. So 4 o'clock came, and I stayed till 5, and I went out into the parking lot. I obviously didn't die. I went out into the parking lot. I looked around. Nobody was there. I got in the car, in my yellow car, and I drove home. And the next day I came in, and, you know, when I think back about it, you know, it's like, I think you know, people would say, why don't you just leave early, you know? And I think instinctually that I didn't really believe him, because why was he talking to me about this? If he was so worried that his dad was going back to prison, why come to me? Why don't you go to your dad and say, no, it's not a good idea to kill anyone today. Why don't you, you know, next Thursday, you know, it's not, you know, don't do this. It's not the right thing. And when I said to him, you know, this is what happened, I would think that he would naturally call his dad and say, hold off on the killing. You know, there's another thing. There's another story coming in. Let's do this other thing or something like that. And the next day when I came in, and I saw him, and I said, did you tell your dad? Did you explain the whole thing? I mean, what did he say? Did he say, oh, that's really funny? Or what? I mean, what did he say? And he kind of just like, you know, just like waved it off like it wasn't important. He just went, nah, you know, I didn't really discuss it with him or something like that. And I was like, you told me I was going to die in 8 hours, you know. And then, I didn't say this to him, but I'm thinking, you know, I guess it kind of confirmed my suspicion, you know. And on reflection, it really occurred to me that when I said to him, what's it like to see your friends die? What he had experienced was that he would be next. I mean, he was scared, probably scared, that he would be next when he saw his friends die. I was asking what his reaction was to the people, you know, like people dying, like your parents die, what's that like? And he was really saying to me, you want to know what it's like to be scared? And that's what I think he was doing.
Neal Nusholtz.